Alright, welcome to the Learning Target number 3 video. You should be on page number, what do we got, 8 looks like. Your pages might be a little bit different than mine. If they are, just figure out where I'm at. But it's Learning Target number 3. I can display and analyze data using a histogram. So basically, the learning target is I can draw a histogram from a table, or I can give you a histogram and you have to be able to draw conclusions or analyze it. Okay, so you can see here's one that's done for you. So we're just going to look at this because we've done a ton of these histograms on review sheets, and I think you guys are very, very clear on what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, here we have a frequency table. These are what we learned about in learning target number 1. We were given an interval here, some interval. So I guess we should read what the table is actually showing here. The table shows the number of minutes 25 students spent reading for pleasure in one day. Okay. So we have from 0 to 29, there were 1. Okay. 30 to 59, there'd be 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. So they took that. Those things are already broken into intervals. Okay. Notice the intervals are all the same size. Okay. It's very important that the intervals are broken into the same size. You have to do that. Now those intervals will always be your x-axis. Now remember, the x is the horizontal one. This is the y. Please label those. Okay. All right, and you can see they put the intervals on the x-axis there, and then the y-axis is always your frequency. Okay, that's just the amount of times that happened in that interval. So we go back up here. I'll have to kind of bounce back and forth because my screen isn't large enough. But you can see from 0 to 29 minutes there was 1. There was 1. Okay, that's why it only goes to 1 there, and then we can go on and on. From 30 to 59 there were 3. So to make it a little bit easier, I'm just going to go ahead and write those in. 7, 5, 3, and then 1. Okay. Now, a couple things here. Again, the two main differences between this and a bar graph is, number one, that the bars are touching. You remember a bar graph, we talked about this on review sheets. Bar graphs here look like this. They got gaps in between them, something like that. But the major difference between a bar graph and a histogram is histograms have these intervals. Okay, you give an interval, like from this to that. Some might say that's a range. It's really not a range, but it's called an interval. But I would understand if you called it a range. Okay, whereas a bar graph, it has categories down here. The example I always gave in class was I said, oh, well, your favorite food. If we had chicken, we had steak, and we had pizza. Okay, those are categories, or your favorite color, or something like that. Okay, that's what it's doing. Now let's analyze this graph a little bit. Let's draw some conclusions. That's what I've been really harping on in class today, and when Miss Gibson was here, because I really want you guys to be able to take this and learn from it. What is it showing us? Okay, and as I look here, I say, okay, there were 7 students that read between 90 and I think that's 119, 119 minutes per day. So as a teacher, I'm looking at this going, okay, so that means right there, most people in a day spend between 90 minutes and 119 minutes, which is like somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. Okay, I guess that's good knowledge to have if you're a teacher. That's a lot. You are a little bit concerned maybe with this person here that only reads from 0 to 29. But anyway, you feel pretty good about this, I think, if you're a teacher. Now, we talk about the word skewed. We talked about the word, Miss Gibson used the word nearly symmetrical. Now, we used this when we did please write this, by the way. We did this when we did line plots or dot plots. Okay, but it's the same idea. I mean, if you think back to like when we had dot plots here, if I can find one on here somewhere. There's a dot plot. I mean, you can see how it kind of looks like a histogram, essentially. I mean, it kind of gives that same illusion, like you can see how tall it is to kind of see where the biggest amount of frequency is. Okay, it's the same thing, kind of. Similar as far as the understanding of it. Okay, so when I'm looking here, I'm going, okay, would this be nearly symmetrical, or would it be skewed? Would it be exactly symmetrical? All these are good words. Another word for symmetrical that they'd use would be uniform. Okay, but these are the two biggies right here. Is I just want you to be able to say whether it's skewed to the right or skewed to the left, and I want you to be able to say whether it is more symmetrical. It's not skewed, essentially. Okay, so as I look at this, first thing I notice is, remember, skewed would look like this. Well, let me redraw it. Skewed would be maybe, let's say I had 7 people that read between 0 and 29 minutes. I had that many people read between 30 and 59, that many people there, that many people there. And you can see that would be skewed because all my data values are all the way to the left. Okay, so this, you can see where there's a tapering going on. All my data values are at one side or the other. That's what skewed means. The other type of skewed would be if like it was like this. And it started off really small, and then the more you got, the more minutes that went, the higher the minutes got, the more students that you had reading in that interval. Okay, that would also be skewed. Now this clearly, whenever you see that the biggest bar right in the center or close to the center, and you have somewhat of the same amount on each side, you know it's going to be somewhat symmetrical. Okay? But as I look at this, I want you to take note that this right here is exactly symmetrical. This is perfectly symmetrical. And the reason why is because right to the left and the right of the middle bar, there were 5. And then right to the left of the 5s, there were 3s, and then right to the left and the right were 1s. So you can see that is a perfect mirror image. So if I were to draw a line down right between here, this would be perfectly symmetrical with what's on the left with what is on the right. Okay, so this would be perfectly symmetrical, not skewed at all. Okay. Okay, now you have to draw a histogram, okay? Now, this table, it is showing, in a study of the length of several individuals of one species of fish caught, the following observations were recorded. The lengths were measured to the nearest centimeter. Okay, so you can see, they've already picked the intervals. Now, the interval here is 10, right? That's the size of the interval. And the reason it's 10 and not 9 is because you have to include 51. Right? So 51, 52, 53, all the way to 60 is 10. That's why I don't like to call this the range, because the range is 60 minus 51 is 9. But the interval length is 10 because you have to include 51. Okay? So the intervals are already done for you. So all you have to do is then is just draw your XY axis just like this. Remember to always label. That's the X, that's the Y. You always have to label. Okay, the y-axis is always going to be your frequency. Okay, and then the x is going to be your interval. So in this case, it's going to be the length of the fish. We always got to have labels on these things. Okay. Now, since the biggest amount of frequency is 7, we can just go ahead and number these from 1 all the way to 7. It's pretty easy to see there. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and then down here you're just going to put your frequencies then. So from 51 to 60, from 61 to 70, from 71 to 80, from 81 to 90, from 91 to 100, and then from 101 to 110. Okay, I will tell you that if you get in a class tomorrow and we're working on these, I will have graph paper available because it's much easier to make on graph paper because you can just, it's just much easier than doing it on lines. And then now we've made the graph. It's done. So now we just have to go make bars above each interval. So I know that this, 1 second. From here, this has a frequency of 4, so I'm going to go all the way to 4. Now I want to make note of something real quick here. In the previous graph, in the previous histogram, they started their histogram right here. They moved it all the way over to the y-axis. Now the reason I'm not doing that is because you see how this is 0 to 29? So it gets shoved all the way to the left. Whereas this, it starts at 51, so we want to keep that little gap there because technically it's not over there. Okay, so my frequency would be 4. Now let's do 61 to 70. I know the frequency is 5, so we got to go 1 above. There we go. Okay, now 71 to 80, I see that that is 7, so I got to go all the way up to 7. Okay, 81 to 90, there are 4, so I'm back down here to 4, about right there. Again, you can see why graph paper would make this a lot easier. 91 to 100, there were 2, so we kind of drop way down. And then from here, from 101 to 110, we had another 4. Okay. So again, to make, oh yeah, one more thing actually before I say that is you always need to have a title also. So maybe you say lengths of fish or something. Always want to put a title on there. Okay. Always label it. Same with our line plot. Okay. So yours should look something like this. Okay. Now, if you were going to analyze this and draw some conclusions, first thing I would say is I would definitely say that this is nearly symmetrical. And the reason I say that is because I see the biggest bars close to the middle, and then I see about the same amount on this side as this side. Now, is it exactly symmetrical? No, it's not, but it's close. Okay. I would like you guys to pause, and I want you to draw this one here. Okay. Hopefully you've drawn it. Hopefully you did. You better have. Okay, and practiced. Okay, remember your frequency always goes on the left. I'm just going to put F. Down here, I'm running out of room, but it's going to be all my intervals. So 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, and 9 to 10. And by the way, I should have a label down here. I'm going to put it off to the side because I'm out of room down there. So scores, you should definitely have that down there labeling it. Okay, now I see my scores go from 1 to 10, so I'm going to have to be real careful here with my numbering. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then from 1 to 2, remember I'm going to leave a gap there because it's not 0 to 2, so I'm going to leave a gap. There were 8 scores there. Okay. From 3 to 4, there were also 8 scores, so you want to be the same height. Okay. From 5 to 6, there were 10, so I want to go up a little bit. And then from 7 to 8, there were 9, so about right there. And then from 9 to 10, there were 5, so it dropped down there. Okay. Again, I would probably consider this nearly symmetrical. I don't think this is skewed by any means. But, you know, again, calling something skewed, I can listen to you guys if you want to, if you disagree with me and say, I think this is skewed. I want to hear it because that means you're thinking. Okay, because there's not an exact thing I can teach you to say that it's skewed if it's this. Okay, it's kind of a gray area. You're just not sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next page. Okay, so here, what do we have here? The data shows the height in inches of students in the class. Now this is the one here. This is where I think it gets a little bit maybe more tricky. Okay, because I think the hardest thing about histograms for me, and maybe you guys will agree, is this, and please write this. This is the hardest thing about histograms, I think. Choosing the interval size. I think that is a really difficult thing for students. It's difficult for adults. I mean, you just kind of gotta. It's not a perfect thing I can teach you to say always do this, always do that. Okay, so you just kind of gotta feel it. Now, the first thing you always want to identify is you always want to identify the smallest and the largest, just like we did for dot plots. So as I go through here, I'm seeing 50. I don't think there's anything below 50. I think that's the minimum. Okay, and then let's see maximum. Hopefully I picked the right one here. There's 66. There's 68. 69. Okay, 73, I think that's it. Hopefully you guys agree with me. So that would be my max. Okay, so what I know is I know I need to, my range here, my total is going from 50 to 73. Okay, so my range here, I don't want to figure out my range because that's going to give me something wrong, but I have to figure out how many heights could be between here. Okay, so if you counted them, 50, 51, 52, 53, and so on, okay, you would find out that there are 24 inches that separate 50 to 73 if you're including 50. So if I were going to break this into into 4 intervals, then that means my length of each interval, 24 divided by 4, would have to be 6. Okay, so my intervals here for this would have to be, I need to start at 50. Now, how would my interval be 6 inches if I start at 50? It would be 50 to 55, right? Not 56. Because again, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, and 55. That is 6 inches right there. So that's my first interval. Then my next one would be 56 to 61. That would be 6 inches. Okay? Next one would be 62 to 67. And the last one would be 68 to 73. All of them have 6 inches separating them. It's always good to use an interval around. Here's a good rule of thumb, guys. Intervals, and this is the way Mr. Edwards also teaches it. Okay? It's always good to use intervals of 5 or 10. That is the best advice I can give you. Use 5 or 10 most of the time. Interval size, I should say. Interval size. Okay, now we use interval size of 6 here, but that's fine. So there are my intervals. So let's go down here and graph this thing. I'm going to have to zoom out, so hopefully you guys can still see. Again, I went ahead and put the x, y on there for you. We should always label x and y. My intervals here always go on the x-axis, so that means I got 50 to 55. I have 56 to 61, 62 to 67, and then 68 to 73. Okay? We don't really know what to make my frequency yet here because I got to kind of go through here. So I would say, I can look through here and say, they're probably only going to be 4 or 5 the same at the most. So I'm just going to make my frequency up to 5 for now. And then if I need to raise it, I will. Okay? This is why it's technically easier, just for the future, guys. It's technically going to be easier on you guys if you make a table. See how here it's not the raw data. It already put it in a table. It's much easier to see because then you just take the frequency and put it in. Now I'm going to skip that step just to save some time, but I'm essentially going to do it at the same time. Okay? So I'm going to highlight in yellow, or I'm going to highlight in, yellow, any numbers that fall between 50 and 55 up here. So there's 1, 50 and 55. Okay. That is it, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to go in green, anything between 56 and 61. Okay, there's 56, 60. Okay, there's 56. There's 57. There's 61. There's 61. There's 60. There's 58. There's 59. Sorry about that. And had somebody at the door. I don't even remember where I was. Oh, yeah. Figuring out all the ones that are between 56 and 61. 56. Or, well, that's 59. 59. 61. I think that's it. So, I know... Well, let's just keep going here, and then we'll come back to it. I'll do in red anything between 62 and 67. 62. All these are, as you can see. Okay. That's it there. 63, 65, 66, 63, 66, 64, 67, 64, and then 66. Okay, so that's that. And then finally the last one here, everybody between 68 and 73 we'll put in blue. 68, oh, you know what? Maybe you guys are screaming at the thing right now. 67 should have been in red, right? Okay, so now we'll go to the blue that I had. So 68 to 73, there's blue, 68 to 73. Okay, and there we go. And you can see why this is, I hope you guys are realizing why this is better to put it in a table. I mean, that's hard to do, what I just did there. It's hard to just look through. It's much easier to actually go down here, make your table, split it in half, say my interval from 50 to 55, and then go up and count them and say, okay, there were, from 50 to 55 was yellow, so there was only 1. There it is. Now we do 56 to 61. Okay, how many were there? That's green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then we do 62 to 67. Count up how many reds there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 there. And then finally we do 68 to 73. And that's the ones in blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Okay. And then from there, now it's just all about graphing. So I think you guys are getting the picture. But it is easier to make it into a table. I'm going to be honest. That will alleviate some stress, seriously. Okay, so again, this is just at 1. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to number this a heck of a lot more than I did, didn't I? Okay, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, this could go on for a while. 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So again, I think you guys can see why the table would help, because I had no idea what to make my frequency when I first started there. Okay, so now I know that there was 1 in that that interval there. Then 56 to 61 were the greens, which I know were 13. So I would draw my bar all the way up here to 13, and then the biggie this one would go all the way up to 18. Sorry, this is so sloppy, guys. And then 68 to 73, there were 8. So we go to 8 and then bring it down like that. So you can pretty much see that this is another one that I would probably consider nearly skewed, because you can pretty much draw a line and see the same amount of data values on the left as you do on the right. Okay, so that's that. I think we're going to be fine. The biggest thing is picking the interval. I think that is going to be the thing you guys are going to struggle with most. And then tomorrow, what I want to do when you guys come in, remind me please, is I want to do B. So you don't even have to do part B. We will do part B together tomorrow when you come in, and then we'll get some practice in. But I think you guys would agree that picking the interval is probably the hardest thing you can do. But it's not impossible. So I will see you guys tomorrow.